about a 2-hour drive or so from Atlanta, some may say in the middle of nowhere, is a place called Elberton, Georgia. Population less than 5,000. So why does it attract more than 10,000 tourists every year?
Because it's the home of North America's version of Stonehenge, known as the Georgia Guidestones. 6 slabs of granite, 4 main stones, each about 16 feet tall and weighing more than 20 tons. There's one center stone and a capstone, the stone on top, that takes the full height to 19 feet, about 6 feet taller than Stonehenge. There is an additional stone to the west of the structure with notes inscribed giving a history of the Guidestones and referencing a time capsule underneath the stones. However, the time was never inscribed on the stone, so no one knows if the time capsule actually exists.
Okay, so that's all pretty interesting, but it's not the layout, nor the location, nor the general oddity of all this that makes the Georgia Guidestones one of the most enduring mysteries today in the United States.
It's what's written on them that has spawned conspiracy theories for the last 40 years. Chiseled into the stone in 8 different languages are 10 directives that have been called everything from the blueprint for a harmonious world to the commandments for worshippers of Satan.
It's a wide berth we have there.
It's very dramatic. Anything shrouded in this much mystery that warrants that diverse a response is a perfect subject for Buckle Up, the Mystery Podcast.
Nice intro. And welcome and thanks for listening. We're your hosts, Erin and Derek. She's the nice sounding one. Now, this is a new feature we're rolling out here called Mini Mystery Monday.
So alliterative.
Yeah, I like that. We take like 10, 15 minutes or so on a topic we think you'll find interesting to kind of get your week started, give you some water cooler material.
We came up with the idea for Mini Mystery Mondays when we were thinking about a show on the Georgia Guidestones and realized it's a great, interesting story, but probably not something that takes a full half hour or more. So, as we like to do, let's get right to it. The basic history is, in June of 1979, a man using the pseudonym Robert C. Christian went to the Elberton Granite Finishing Company with an idea. Representing what he called a, quote, small group of loyal Americans who seek an age of reason, end quote, he explained his vision of the monument. The folks at the finishing company were obviously more than a little skeptical about it, but when the mystery man produced a $10,000 deposit, in 1979, they got to work.
Yeah, money talks, right? So some folks wonder why they would build this thing in such a small, remote place. But then when you consider the logistics, it actually makes sense. You see, Elberton's known as the granite capital of the world. Its granite deposits are so vast that if they mined all of it, they could use all that stone to fill up the Rose Bowl 2 million times. Remember, the Rose Bowl is one of the largest stadiums in North America. Also, if you want something built to last, then granite is the way to go. Mount Rushmore monuments, that's granite. So is a famous statue of Amenhotep III, which has been at the British Museum since the 1820s, but is believed to have been built around 1370 BC. So you get the sense of why the man known as R.C. Christian would want it to be made of granite and why that took him to rural Georgia. By the way, he also bought 5 acres of land in the area from a local farm owner and then gave that farmer's family lifetime grazing rights on the property, and that is where the stones stand today.
A lot of planning went into the Guidestones. The mystery man had a scale model made and delivered to the builders, along with 10 pages of detailed instructions. It had to be made to the specific height and laid out in a specific way because the structure also acts as a compass, a clock, and a calendar. It has remarkably accurate astronomical features. The capstone on top is actually aligned with the North Star. A hole was drilled into one section so when the sun passed overhead, it would illuminate the correct day of the year. R.C. Christian said at one point that his group had been planning it for 20 years. But the most intriguing part of it is the writing. 10 directives, often referred to in the press as the New Commandments, are etched into the pillars in 8 different languages: English, Spanish, Swahili, Hindi, Hebrew, Arabic, Chinese, and Russian.
I know this I found interesting because of the ones that he chose, right? And back in 1980, when the monuments were unveiled, Hindi and Arabic were not even in the top 15 most spoken languages in the world, and Russian was just 14th. You're talking about, German, French, even Polish. They were some of the ones you were thinking that maybe they would be talking about if you're talking about how that world looked at that time. Now, all those ones we mentioned, Hindi, Arabic, Russian, all in the top 8 most spoken languages worldwide. I think that kind of gives us a little bit of a look at how the people that designed the Georgia Guidestones were thinking. They seem to have a pretty good grasp of the dynamic, changing nature of humanity on a global scale. So we've gotten a lot of minutia here, so I'm sure you're all wondering at this point, You're all wondering. There's one thing I'm sure it's
Oh
all
my
on
gosh.
your mind. What is written
gosh.
on them exactly? Let's get to the list.
So the list begins with, and probably one of the most controversial directives, maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. Now, as of June 2020, there are currently around 7.8 billion individuals on the planet. So 500 million is around 6.5% of the world's current population.
So you're talking about basically worldwide genocide is what you're talking
Well,
about.
it depends on the theory you choose for the stones, right? Why was it made?
Which is what we're going to get to in a second. All right,
Exactly.
number 2 on the list. Guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity.
Unite humanity with a living new language, which I find interesting since it was written in so many different languages on the stone.
Put everybody together at one time. Right. Rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason.
Protect people and nations with fair laws and just courts.
Let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court.
Avoid petty laws and useless officials.
It's a long list there. Balance personal rights with social duties.
Prize truth, beauty, love, seeking harmony with the infinite.
And finally, be not a cancer on the earth, leave room for nature. And then written again, leave room for nature.
But that's not all. Another, I think, often overlooked feature of the Guidestones is what's written at the top of the structure. On each of the 4 sides of the capstone are the words, quote, "Let these be guidestones to an age of reason," end quote. But they're written in 4 ancient languages: Classical Greek, Sanskrit, ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics, and Babylonian. After the monument was unveiled on March 22, 1980, the man known as R.C. Christian disappeared from the county, and as far as anyone knows, he's never been back. Part of the agreement he had with the construction company was for him to remain completely and forever anonymous.
Ooh, the mystery man. I wonder if he's tall, dark, and handsome. Actually, we'll kind of get to some ideas on who this person might be in a second. So for more than 2 decades, people, they left the stones alone. Simply tried to kind of figure out what they meant. And then in the internet age, the graffiti started.
Oh my.
People are jerks sometimes. In 2008, someone painted on the stones slogans like "Death to the New World Order," and the whole New World Order Illuminati thing tends to pop up a lot with things like this. In 2013, it got so bad that security cameras were added as a means to prevent any more defacing of the property. And by that time, ownership of the structure had been transferred to Elbert County, so they were trying to protect their tourist attraction. Part of the reason that these stones have drawn so much attention is there's so many different ways, as I'm sure you can imagine, to interpret them.
Some people look at the messages as kind of a wake-up call for failing societies. Yoko Ono, the voice of reason here, even called them, quote, "a stirring call to rational thinking," end quote. Other people aren't as positive, like famed conspiracy theorist Mark Dice, who wants the Guidestones to be destroyed because he says they're of, quote, "a deep satanic origin," end quote. The satanic worshiping belief is a very common one.
Yeah, but I looked at Mark Dice's Twitter feed, and it suggests that he sees the world in a very similar way to InfoWars' Alex Jones, so I'm not too keen on listening to anything any of those people have to say. Jones has also made claims about the Guidestones being tied to a new world order bent on eliminating most of the world's population. So there's that. Other people think the Guidestones are a warning to humankind to start being nicer to each other, while some folks see it as a shrine for sun worshippers. The bottom line here, Erin, is there are a ton of conspiracy theories surrounding this thing. We kind of boiled it down. Let's outline some of the more rational ones that we can maybe try and get some proof of, because if we start going down the road of, well, they're just for sun worshippers or Satan worshippers, and we're not going to get anywhere, because that's completely speculative.
Do you think the satanic theorists think if you walk around the stones backwards, a satanic message plays?
Yeah, if you play it backwards, it'll tell you that, you know, I made the Yoko Ono reference there, you know, talking about Beatle assassinations. People talk about, hey, there you go.
Let's get to the theories. Theory 1. The man calling himself Robert C. Christian is really Joe H. Finley Sr., the granite company owner. So huge slabs of granite would have been cheaper for him to source, and he had help in constructing the ruse from Wyatt Martin, the bank official who helped with the financing. Now, Finley is a 32nd degree Mason. Mason, it refers to Freemasonry, which is a secret society and contains many elements of a religion, but is not a religious organization. Its teachings enjoin morality, charity, and obedience to the law of the land. In most traditions, of course, the applicant for admission is required to be an adult male.
As
Think of it like
who has seen National Treasure with Nicolas Cage, we learned all about that in the very Hollywoody kind of way.
I'm now an expert on that. Yeah. So, the fictional Robert Christian once said, quote, "The group feels by having our identity remain a secret, it will not distract from the monument and its meaning," end quote. People knowing that it was built by Masons would be distracting. Also, the only people who ever allegedly talked to R.C. Christian are Martin and Finley. Surprise, surprise. So, the theory is they made up the character of R.C. Christian so they could put up the Masonic landmark.
It's got some teeth to it, I think. You know, a couple of guys who want to be able to get it done, but they don't want to bring the distraction in, and they certainly have access to it.
So you're saying they built this for a friend?
We're saying, well, if you bring in other people for misdirections when you're telling your story.
Oh, it's a red herring.
Just like communism.
All right, give me theory 2.
All right, theory 2. I love this one. Okay, some people think it was funded by Ted Turner.
I'm taking away your microphone.
No, yes. That Ted Turner. Trying to stay with me here, kid. This is fun. The belief is that Robert C. Christian is actually the guy who invented CNN. His real name, by the way, Ted Turner, is Robert Edward Turner. I believe that he took the T at the end of Robert and the Ed at the start of Edward to get the Ted, but I'm just speculating, getting off track here.
Oh, wow.
All right. It's long been rumored that Ted Turner is, in fact, a Freemason. And add to that the fact that R.C. Christian is a pseudonym tied to the Rosicrucian secret societies from the Middle Ages that play a significant role in Scottish Rite Masonry, and the landowner where the monument was built just happened to be a Freemason, and we're on to something. Also, Turner co-founded the Nuclear Threat Initiative. That's an organization focused on limiting the proliferation of nuclear, biological, and chemical weapons, which goes along the lines of letting nations settling disputes in a way that does not involve blowing everyone to smithereens. Turner also donated, over the course of nearly 2 decades, $1 billion to the United Nations. So when you look at the words on the Guidestones, things like world courts and avoiding petty laws and useless officials, sure seems like a nod to the UN type of setup. Plus, Ted Turner's flat out said and done some wacky things over the years, including managing the Atlanta Braves for a game when he owned the team in the 1970s. Commissioner of Baseball was not fond of that move. In fact, I think we could do an entire podcast now just on Ted Turner. Now, I want to say I would be shocked if this was indeed the reality, but it's just such a fun thing to think about. I'm going to put it in if we're talking about old Mythbusters, I'm going to say plausible.
Plausible.
Not possible.
Right.
It's plausible.
Okay, I think you're going to like theory 3 since you're very into the Freemasons. This also has the Masons being an influence. So, there is a belief that the monument was created as an homage to the Age of Reason by Thomas Paine.
Freemason.
His famous work was intended to debunk the notion that the United States was founded on Christian belief. And keep in mind, the 4 ancient languages on the capstone mention an age of reason. And let's face it, there are some disturbing things about this monument. The writing suggests a belief that we either should cut the world's population from several billion to no more than 500 million, or that there is some kind of event coming that will kill off 94% of the people on the planet. Perhaps a pandemic of some sort?
Too soon!
Sorry. And the words on the Guidestones are the best way for humanity to start over, and for lack of a better phrase, get it right.
I can see that one too. I really can. But I think theory 4, this is probably the one where I'm going to fall down on here. The Guidestones are simply the guidelines for people to follow to create a better world. They were commissioned in 1979 and debuted the following year. So this is right in the heart of the Cold War, which also might be why Russian was one of the languages chosen. The Cuban Missile Crisis had happened just 17 years earlier, and Robert Christian was reported to say that his group had been planning the stones for, as you said, nearly 2 decades. The writing on the stones is either a plea to change the way we're doing things in the present, or more likely, the blueprint for how to restructure society after a World War III type scenario where mutually assured destruction. That was the agreement the US and the Soviet Union had, that if one side launched nukes, the other one would as well and wipe everybody out. Has in fact happened, and the world's experiencing a nuclear holocaust. So, like I said, this is where I fall on this one. It's not about actively trying to wipe out billions of people. It's a way to make sure if we are stupid enough to destroy that many lives in a war-type situation, that kind of thing doesn't happen again. Erin, what say you?
You know, I'm in agreement with you here. I do think that it was presented to be, an agreement that the world could come to. I think that's why it's written in so many different languages. I think that's why it's used as a clock, as a compass. Those are things that are valuable in starting up a new world. I can't help but travel to The Walking Dead, thinking why they haven't done a piece on this. You know,
Isn't-
Georgia.
That's actually a great point.
Yeah.
Why would they not go to something like this in a show that is
I know.
that type of a thing? And it happens all over the state of Georgia.
I agree. Norman Reedus, call me. Thanks.
Wow. What if he hears this? That'd be
I
awesome.
have ideas.
That'd be awesome.
So
This is completely fascinating.
just the astronomical precision element to me points to developing a new world order should something happen to the last one. And
Also,
doing
the
so...
sundials have been made for centuries and centuries and centuries, made out of stone. So there had already been, astronomical type of construction based on granite or using rock and things
Well,
like
I'm
that,
also
based on just on the
curious
sun.
about the time capsule. They say that it's supposed to be 6 feet underneath it, and I'm kind of thinking, well, why haven't they done some kind of surveying to see if there really is something buried underneath that? That could definitely lend more information.
We saw Jurassic Park. You could do some shoot one of those things down there, then make the images.
Oh, clever girl.
Exactly. Or you could do like an MRI or an X-ray of some kind. I'm sure you can figure that out. All right. Okay. So that is Mini Mystery Monday.
Did you just say an MRI?
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you for joining us for our
Take
first.
an MRI
I'm
machine
done.
out there.
I'm taking your
I
microphone.
meant X-ray. Darn it. Do a CT
That's
scan while you're at
our
it.
first Mini Mystery Monday. We'll be doing this weekly, so please join us next Monday for another little quirky mystery. This is Erin and Derek. Thanks for joining us.
Have a good one, y'all.